When I was teaching, I stopped relying on long unit tests that covered everything at once. Instead, I used shorter, focused checks built around one skill at a time. Students could quickly see what they understood, where they were stuck, and what to work on next. That same idea is what makes microlearning so powerful in online courses. Not because shorter automatically means better, but because focused lessons can reduce overwhelm, strengthen retention, and make content easier to build and maintain. Learners often do not check out because the information is useless. They check out because they are being asked to process too much at once. And that costs more than attention. It can lead to weaker retention, bloated courses, and unnecessary production time. In this video, I'll show you why overloaded courses lose learners, how focused microlearning can improve retention, and how L&D teams can update, reuse, and maintain content faster. Before we get into the research, picture microlearning like a spotlight on a theater stage. At first, the whole stage is lit. The set, the dancers, the props, and the background. Then, everything dims except one spotlight on the lead character. Without anyone explaining it, you know where to focus. That's what good microlearning does. It does not ignore the bigger picture. It simply says, for the next few minutes, this is the one thing that matters. And that is the key. Microlearning does not work just because it is short. A short lesson can still feel overwhelming if it tries to teach too much. This helps reduce cognitive load, which simply means the amount of new information the brain is trying to process at once. When a lesson piles on new terms, multiple processes, exceptions, charts, and scenarios, too many things compete for attention. The learner checks out, not because the content is unimportant, but because there is too much to process. Microlearning reduces that noise by giving the learner one clear target. So instead of one long module called Customer Service Communication, you might create separate lessons on acknowledging a frustrated customer, asking a clarifying question, and closing with a clear next step. Each lesson should have one job. Microlearning is not just cutting a 45-minute course into smaller videos. The goal is not to make the lesson tiny, it's to make the target obvious. That is what I saw in my classroom. With big unit tests, students often studied a little of everything, felt overwhelmed, and discovered too late which skills they had not mastered. But with short, targeted quizzes, the goal was clear. This one is about solving two-step equations. This one is about finding slope from a graph. Because students had more than one chance to show understanding, the quiz felt less like a final judgment and more like useful feedback. Parents even told me, my child never thought they were good at math until they had your class. I don't think that happened because I made math easy. I think it happened because I stopped making every assessment feel like one giant finish line. And that matters because quizzes do more than measure learning. They can strengthen it. Each time learners pull an idea back from memory, they make it easier to recall again later. Microlearning creates more natural opportunities for that practice. Teach one skill. Show one example. Let the learner try it. Give feedback while the idea is still fresh. That is one reason microlearning can support better retention. This matters especially for adult learners because they are rarely taking a course with unlimited time and focus. They are learning between meetings, after a long workday, or while juggling several other urgent tasks. So we have to design for the conditions people are actually learning in. That is where microlearning can help. A short, focused lesson creates a smaller entry point, something learners can finish, use, and return to later. It might be a 5-minute lesson before a manager has a difficult conversation, a quick refresher before a teacher uses a new platform, or a short practice activity inside a larger course. Microlearning is not just about respecting attention spans. It's about respecting the learner's real life. When a lesson fits the way people actually work and learn, they are more likely to complete it, remember it, and use it when it matters. And microlearning can also make life easier for the people building the course. Microlearning can also make courses easier to update, reuse, and maintain. Think about a long compliance module. If one policy changes, the team may need to revise the script, re-record narration, update visuals, republish the course, and test everything again. That is a lot of work for one small change. But when the content is built as focused modular lessons, the update is much simpler. One policy changes, so one lesson changes. One example becomes outdated, so one example gets replaced. One process step changes, so one small piece gets revised. Those lessons can also be reused. An onboarding lesson might become a refresher. A short explanation could support a job aid. A scenario from one course might work in another. That is where the cost savings begin to show up. Not because microlearning cuts corners, but because modular content gives course teams more flexibility. They can update faster, reuse more, and avoid rebuilding large sections of training every time something changes. So microlearning is not only a learner experience strategy, it can also be a smarter production strategy. But that only works when the microlearning is designed well. Short does not automatically mean effective. A weak microlearning strategy asks, how can we cut this long course into smaller pieces? A strong one asks, what should the learner be able to do after this lesson? That shifts the focus from minutes to outcomes. A strong microlearning lesson usually needs 4 parts. One objective, what should the learner accomplish? One explanation, what do they need to understand? One example, what does it look like in practice? One check, can they apply it? So instead of a broad lesson called Effective Email Communication, you might create one focused lesson called Write a Clear Subject Line. Show a few before and after examples, give the learner a quick practice prompt, and ask them to choose or write the stronger subject line. That is small, but it is not shallow. The learner leaves with one useful skill they can actually apply. That is the real value of microlearning. A clear target, a quick chance to practice, and a better chance of remembering the skill later. But keeping a lesson short does not automatically make it memorable. Learners are more likely to stay engaged and remember what they learned when the content gives them a reason to care. And that is where storytelling comes in. Microlearning helps you focus the lesson. Storytelling helps the lesson connect. Watch my next video to learn how to use simple stories, examples, and scenarios to make your courses more engaging and memorable.